Hi, I'm Sam Crowl, a fellow in the Ping Institute for the Teaching of the Humanities at Ohio University and a member of the English department at Ohio University. And in these tough times, as we all struggle and battle adjusting to the COVID virus, the Institute thought it would be a good idea to send out little humanities bits, little humanities moments to keep the conversation and the communication alive with our fellow teachers in the humanities. And some of these early ones were sort of focusing on the plague in the past because of its toll on our own moment. And so I'm here to talk a bit about the plague and Shakespeare. And in this little bit, we're going to focus on Shakespeare's life and its the relationship to the plague. As you know, he was born in 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon in April, and by mid-July, the plague had struck the town. The plague came and went throughout the Elizabethan period, but there was an incident in 1564, and something like 20% of the population of the little town, was only 1,500, died. And the plague actually got within 2 doors of Shakespeare's home, the famous Birthplace Trust on Henley Street, where many of you may have already visited. In fact, it always amuses me that many more people have visited Shakespeare's birthplace than have gone to see a Shakespeare play at the Royal Shakespeare Company. But anyway, Shakespeare escaped at that moment. Later on, when he had moved to London and had become a member of the company that performed at first the theater and then the Globe, there was a big outbreak in 1592-93 that closed the theaters, and they went on tour, which was what happened regularly when the plague would close the theaters. There were rules, much as we have them in our own time, about lockdown. And once any parish in London exceeded more than 30 deaths in a week, then there was a lockdown. So this happened periodically throughout Shakespeare's career. I think you all know that he had 3 children, that Anne was pregnant when they were married, and that baby was Susanna. And 2 years later, they had twins, Hamnet and Judith. Hamnet was a name in Elizabethan England that was synonymous with Hamlet. And they were named after good friends of the Shakespeares, Judith and Hamnet Sadler. In 1595, so 11 years after 1596, 11 years after the twins were born, Hamnet died. And we don't really know precisely why. It was conjectured by some that it might have been the plague, but there are no definitive records about this. But it was a major blow to Shakespeare, and many see it as influencing his writing of his greatest tragedy, or his most famous tragedy, Hamlet. The plague continued to work on the theater from 1606 to 1610. Most scholars think that in that 4-year period, the theater was only up and running for about 9 months. What I find interesting in the way in which this all works in our own time is that in very recent days, in 2018 and now in 2020, 2 contemporary artists, one a filmmaker, another a novelist, have turned to the Shakespeare story, to the biography of Shakespeare, particularly to the relationship of Shakespeare and his son Hamlet and how he may have died. And one of those is a very interesting movie made by Kenneth Branagh called All Is True. And I recommend to you all, if you haven't seen it, Judi Dench, Ian McKellen, and others. And Hamlet is very much at the center of that story. Then just this year, an Irish novelist, Maggie O'Farrell, has written an interesting novel called Hamnet about Hamlet, about his death, about his relationship to his mother. In fact, the mother, Anne, called Agnes for reasons you'll understand when you read the novel, is at the center of the story. But it's a fascinating read, and I recommend it to you both. What is sort of interesting is that both Branagh and O'Farrell are from Belfast. They're from Northern Ireland. So it's the Irish who are keeping Shakespeare and the Plague alive in our moment. So I hope that you avail yourself of those two good works, and in a future one of these little ping moments, I'll come back and talk about how the play worked or functioned in some of Shakespeare's plays.